Hi, my name's Phil. I like to talk about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss another area in which Boris Johnson's government are making Brexit arguably even worse than it needs to be, this time by deliberately suppressing the sort of messaging that might help people at least brace for impact. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news in politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, Brexit looming, imminent now. There are problems that we face whether or not we get a deal, because that's still up in the air. In addition, there are a whole mess of problems that are coming our way if we don't get a deal, particularly. Now, the government have been briefing papers highlighting all the issues that have been leaked. I've mentioned them before, and you can bet your arse I'll be covering them again in the context of what's happening over the next week or so as well. But that's for later. These things are going to happen. The only area of speculation is what exactly is the reading on the apocalypse dial come 2021. There are still ways in which the impact could be much worse. In order to get their Brexit, Conservatives had to keep the general population deluded about the consequences, distracting them with non-existent benefits. However, the problem with this strategy is that Brexit believers won't be preparing for that cliff edge. After all, why would they? Everything is going to be marvellous. Boris said so. He's got a plan for everything. Boris said so. We're going to prosper mightily without a deal. Boris said so. The United Kingdom is going to be stronger than ever. Boris said so. We're going to have countries beating our doors down for trade deals that let them buy our goods and services. Because Boris said so. Businesses are moving overseas due to Brexit. No problem. Brexit will create even more jobs to replace the ones that are lost. We're going to be facing tariffs on food imports. No problem. We'll just make more farms. We're going to struggle to get medicines into the UK. No problem. We'll just stop getting sick. We're going to struggle to get the vaccine for COVID into the country. No problem. The Prime Minister said he had a plan. I mean, he couldn't say what that plan was, much like the rest of his no-deal Brexit plans, but he said he had one. So what's to prepare for? What could you possibly need to do? Unfortunately, there is a small flaw in this plan. Brexit is going to hit people very hard indeed next month. Few days left, couple of weeks, that's all we've got. If people just carry on as normal, then the impacts of Brexit will come as a greater shock and increase the subsequent panic. A panicking population is not generally considered something that a government would wish to manage. I mean, everyone has had terrible things happen in their life. How much worse is the impact when it's unexpected? You know, sometimes terrible things, but you sort of anticipated it, you can take the edge off it. And it seemed that the government was sensitive to this problem before the summer. You know, they were talking about a shock and awe campaign to get us ready for Brexit. With Johnson's hard Brexit assured, not a blind thing anyone could then do about it, the suggestion was that to get ready for Brexit, there needs to be a new campaign, the 2020 edition. And it would come clean about the consequences of Brexit because it was no longer in the government's interest that people should be deluded about them. Manage the levels of concern so that they can be focused into positive mitigating action and soften the blow in January. Problem is that there is no sign of this shock and awe Brexit campaign. I was wondering recently what happened to it. Then I see an article in the Byline Times talking about government missives to local authorities warning them about warning local people about Brexit. So in short, what the government are doing is they're urging local authorities not to present Brexit as something to be concerned about, not to present it in a bad light. Focus on positive outcomes, it says. And they gave an example. So, this is what the government would like a local authority to do. Quote, to continue to trade with the EU after 31st of December 2020, you will need to follow new rules for exporting, including changes to processes and licensing. What they specifically don't want them to say is, you will not be able to continue trading with the EU after 31st of December 2020 if you don't follow new rules for exporting, including changes to processes and licensing. Now, I can go along with that. You know, it's a little bit like in teacher training, you're advised to use positive language. Use the language of what you wish them to do, not what you want them to avoid doing. So instead of telling students not to do something, you advise the positive action that you would like. So for example, I would say, could you please use the power pack as I have demonstrated? What I would not do is say, can you please stop weaponizing that power pack? So let's go with this. Instead of warning people about shortages of certain foods, perhaps we should plug the Brexit benefit of all those New Year's resolutions about losing weight will now become much easier. What about medicine shortages? Well, we're also going to be experiencing a surge in unemployment. Perhaps we're supposed to point to the Brexit benefit in carrying on where the government's COVID strategy left off in decreasing the surplus population, to rebalance the workforce. Besides, if there are far fewer medicines to administer, then nursing shortages won't seem so acute themselves, I guess. All feeds in, all part of a plan. But on a more serious note, clearer government messaging is really important. Government departments have used the concept of what they call nudging for generations in the public interest. Like, for example, coughing and sneezing into tissues. The catch it, bin it, kill it campaign, long before COVID. And, trying to persuade people to wear seatbelts when that became mandatory. That worked. The problem is that this particular messaging is against the public interest. It's an attempt to stop seeing Brexit as a threat, when that is exactly what it is. Usually government messaging of this kind highlights the threat and tells people how to deal with it. So you avoid panic because you're giving the people the solution, but you're still saying to them, this is a threat, you need to manage it. They're doing the opposite here. This isn't an information campaign, but a disinformation campaign. It would be the equivalent of telling people that COVID gives you superpowers and that anyone who happened to be harmed simply didn't take advantage of the opportunities presented by the virus's superpowers. And how does it make sense for the government to do this? Because consider this, in this country there are those who are very much against Brexit and there are those who are very much in favour of it, and some who will be not too sure in between, I suppose. And the ones very much against Brexit are the ones most likely to seek out mitigating action where they can and to employ it where it's possible. That being said, without a consistent message on how it's best to do this, that mitigation will be limited, because how do you know where to go for the most reliable information? But the people who are not even attempting to mitigate are the very people who believe that Brexit is about to piss sunshine and unicorns into their lives. They are also the very people who are supporting Johnson's government. The very people he needs to keep on side are the ones most likely to be hit hard with Brexit full in the face. And also consider that a lot of that Brexit support came from people on lower incomes who will be disproportionately impacted by this. As the article itself makes clear, useful government messages tend to focus on generating a sense of concern, not outright fear as such, but concern over the consequences of not acting. For the government to do this with Brexit is to admit that Brexit is negative, which is exactly right. Whatever this shock and awe campaign was going to be, it seems to have gone now. There must have been a political decision made round about the summer that they didn't want to go down that line after all. For whatever reason, they want to keep people in the dark right up until the end. Presumably, they'd also like to keep people in the dark beyond Brexit Day. I'm not sure that's feasible, however. All we've seen from prominent Brexiteers recently is about blaming others for their mess. It's been a while since I've heard a sunlit upland speech from one of them. Last year, the government had a get ready for Brexit campaign. It was ultimately not needed and just a waste of money, which is probably just as well, because there was little evidence that it actually got people ready at all. This time, when we know it's happening, it's coming. It's coming. Especially if we believe that it is now too late to get an extension. All of us, those for and against Brexit, we all understand that it's now happening. We don't understand exactly under what circumstances it's happening just yet, but we know we're exiting the customs union in a few weeks. Fact. We're losing comprehensive access to the single market. Again, fact. Very soon it will also be a fact that we'll be facing tariffs on the goods that we import from the EU, as well as some other countries as well. Where's the campaign for all of this? All I saw of the campaign from last year was road signs. We saw signs on the road when I was driving around. I don't even see that now, because they're all reserved for COVID. And is that what happened to the campaign? Maybe. You know, did they forget about Brexit with the distractions of COVID? You know, did they not have the bandwidth to provide information on both to the public? Whatever the reason is, the fact is that Brexit is now going to be more damaging for more people, regardless of anything else, just because there are so many people who are not aware of what is going to happen in January. They are not aware of the impacts of Brexit. And so it's going to come as a bit of a shock to them. And if that shock is something that negatively impacts their life, that shock can turn into panic. And that is surely not in the government's interest. But there we are. No one ever said this government was good at planning anything. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.